10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, my friends, and thank you so much for coming to spend part of your day with me. Today is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024, and I have a really special treat for you due to popular request. It's pouring rain here on the East Coast, so if you know, you know. I see so many of you are dealing with this pouring rain, even in the UK. So hopefully the internet's going to hold out. I have Ethernet, so there's that. Let's hope that we can get through this stream. But I have a special guest for you, and she's here backstage. So what are we waiting for? Let's just bring her out. Brandi Churchwell is here tonight, everyone.
Hello.
Everybody was so excited. Everyone's been hounding me to do this. And it's so funny because I'm new to YouTube's, right? I've only been on YouTube for about 8 months. And you told me that you've only been on YouTube for about a year. And I think so many of our viewers have this illusion that we all know each other. And we don't. Like this is the first time that we are actually meeting. So hi.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm glad to be here too. I've had the same thing. Everybody's like, "Oh, you need to team up with Melanie. You need to go on her channel, Melanie Little." So everybody's been I've been hearing your praises have been sung all over my channel. So I'm glad to be here.
And same with you. Apparently you are the queen of charts. And I also want to congratulate you because a little birdie told me that your podcast, 13th Juror Podcast, has reached number 49 in true crime on Chartable. And you also hit 17,000 subs on YouTube today. So congratulations, Miss Brandi.
Thank you. It's a big day. I'm so excited about the podcast too. It's one of those things where when I started, I was like, oh, maybe if 10 people listen, and so I had no idea that anybody was even going to listen. So for it to be, up there is really cool. I'm excited about it.
That is so exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I love it when other women do well. I think that there's a special place in heaven for women who help other women. So we're getting the fast pass, I think, to heaven on that one. Because listen, it's not a competition. People who watch my show are also going to watch your show. So I feel like there's space for everyone.
Yes, I agree.
And, I'm a lawyer. You're not. You're just an amazing fact checker, which is another thing that I love about you because I'm so fact-based too. So tell everyone who's here who doesn't know you a little bit about you and how you got started and what brought you into this crazy world of YouTube.
Yeah, I was on medical leave and I am so used to, working and going and doing. And I was on medical leave. My son, he's 20 now, but he had just, moved out. So all of a sudden now not only am I not working, but I don't have, little ones to take care of. And so all of a sudden I had all this extra time and I needed somewhere to direct it. So I started making charts during the Murdaugh trial, to plot out all the time. They had so many different times in there, like, whatever in this seconds this happened. And, so I started making charts to kind of help visualize what the theories were and what they were saying. And it somebody asked me to put it on Twitter. And so I had never Twittered before, but I did, and it went viral. And then all of a sudden all of this happened from that. So it's been a wild and very unexpected ride.
Kind of like a happy accident, right?
Yes.
It's funny because I started talking on YouTube on other channels around the Murdaugh trial too. So the Murdaugh trial was the first crazy thing that I started covering too.
Yeah.
And now that we're both covering Karen Read, I can say this is the craziest case that I've ever covered.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's so insane. And, one of the things and I love that you're an attorney because I am not. And so one of the reasons that I wanted to go start with the YouTube route is because I loved watching the trials and, putting stuff together and organizing it. But then there's that pushback from some of the LawTube, people who are like, well, you don't know what you're talking about because you're not a lawyer. So I wanted to create a space where everybody, no matter your credentials, can, just the same way the jury does, which is why it's 13th juror. Juries don't have to have credentials to go in there and, analyze evidence and make a decision. So I wanted it to be like that. But I still love hearing the the legal aspect of the case from, from attorneys like you who can break stuff down. So
I'm surprised to hear that you got pushed back from law tubers. Like, that's really interesting to me, because I came in on the law enforcement side. My intro to YouTube was guest hosting on Duty Ron and Police Off the Cuff, who are both retired NYPD detectives. So I really didn't even know like this whole law tube clique thing
yeah.
existed. And so I did learn about it. And, I feel like I'm just too old for that, clickiness. So I'm sorry that happened to you. I would never. And that's just, I don't like that. It makes me upset. But in any way, we're going to get over it for purposes. As everyone knows, there is going to be, everyone says that, John Monagle says, Melanie and Brandi both know more about this case than many in Massachusetts. I don't know about that, but yeah, I think that we are both detail oriented. And so if two people are going to sit down and talk about this case, I think that we are the two people to do it. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here today. And I've linked Brandi's channel below this video. So if you are not subscribed to Brandi Churchwell, the 13th juror, go do that, please, because let's get her to 18,000 today, right? I mean, why not?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So we all know that there's a hearing tomorrow on Karen Read on the buffer zone motion, which we can discuss later. But I think what I would love to do with you, because I am so jealous of your chart making skills, is you have a podcast called Conspiracy in Canton, right?
Yes.
And you have just, I think, posted episode 7.
Yes, episode 7 came up on sometime over the weekend, a Sunday, or for Apple for some reason it didn't show up till Monday or Tuesday. But yeah, it's episode 7 is out, and I'm working to try to get episode 8 out now.
That's amazing. And how long are the episodes?
Different ones are different times. Most of them are between 45 minutes to an hour. This next one might be a little bit longer because there's a lot to cover in that. So
yeah, I think between the two of us, somebody asked them in the pre-chat, I want to know how many collective hours of research that you and Brandi have done on the Karen Read case. And I don't even know if I could estimate.
I don't even have a guess. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, about all the time that I put into the podcast, and I was like, I don't even have a good guess, because it's not just the time at the computer, but even when I'm laying in bed, I'm, like looking at different, things on YouTube, like with some of the attorney stuff, to break it down. Or if I'm in line at the grocery store, I'm scrolling my phone, looking, at stuff. So there's no telling.
I think I have, just content wise, I think I have well over 40 hours on this case. Just me talking for 40 hours, which, it gets exhausting.
Yeah.
So the podcast, you posted on YouTube as well, right? But I guess people can find it on Spotify, Apple, wherever they can find their usual podcast. And that's an audio only one, right?
Yes, that one's audio only, yeah.
But you also have a video show, and you're streaming trials like every single day. So I don't know when you sleep, but you look amazing. So that's amazing. You got that going for you.
Thanks. I joke about how I can't buy an HD camera because then everybody will see how tired I am. So
they have that little, touch up thing on StreamYard, which I love. So, it's just a little something. So why don't I thought what we could do first for everybody is go through your amazing presentation, your timeline presentation. And
Sure.
It's the most recent one. Are you able to share, or do I need to share this?
Yeah, I think I shared my screen.
Yeah, so do I need to share it, or can you control it on your end?
It's not letting me show it, so I think you have to add it.
Okay.
There it goes.
There we go.
So this is it's 13jurorpodcast.com is where all of this is. But the name of the podcast is 13 Juror Podcast. All of the season 2 is Conspiracy in Canton, so everything is on this is a deep dive. So this is the timeline is one of those things that has been very controversial because so many things don't make sense in it. So right. I put together, it's kind of like, and it's so complex. Sleuthy Goosey has a great timeline with like a lot of the, she has almost all of the data like right there together. Some of the stuff is, she's got like the Apple health data and stuff like that too. So she's got a great one. that's like line for line, on the chart. This one is more of like
Wait, are you saying Sleuthy
sleuthy
Goosey
goosey.
on
Yes.
Twitter? For those of you who don't know, Sleuthy Goosey on Twitter has some amazing timelines, right? And she's got
Yeah.
a huge spreadsheet of like every single minute of every
Yeah.
single phone call and
Yeah.
craziness. Okay, good. We'll plug her as well.
Yeah, and she's got links to a lot of the documents and stuff like that too. So, and that is that kind of data visualization timeline works for people like me, but I know a lot of people have to have like a little bit more broken down. So I made this. It's kind of like an interactive timeline. So everything is kind of, you can scroll through down here and then, or you can just go through each of these, but this is the timeline. So also there are, if you go up here at the top, Conspiracy in Canton, there's the photo gallery. It has like everybody of who's who. These are the people who, from the original documents, they said that were there that night. The people that, they've said were at the house, and then just pictures. So each episode has different pictures with it as well. But
yeah, but the family tree stuff that you did is amazing. Maybe can you just enlarge that a little bit on your screen so it can be like full screen in that box that's on our screen? Maybe, I wonder.
Possibly. I don't know if it will. Well, let me see.
On my Mac, I just sort of enlarge the screen part of it.
I have this maxed out, but
all right, that's cool. You can read it to us. So my eyes are not great, but if you read it to us, I think it's going to be great.
Okay. I don't know I don't know how to do it anymore. Tech isn't my thing.
Mine either.
So down here you can kind of scroll through, or you can just, this goes through the whole thing. So the first part, and you'll see down here, the color coordinated thing are like the eras. So the turquoise is like when they're kind of separate bars, and the blue is when they come together, just to kind of help when people are looking for specific things. So the bar hopping begins, and we know that and one thing too, I know, it is really small on the screen right there. Oh, I don't know how to make it bigger on. I don't know that I can. But
as long as you read it
down here, there's all of the notes on issues and inconsistencies in any of these things. So I have like the main timeline, and then, well, that's the main timeline, but these are the issues. So the first thing I have on here is where the bar hopping begins. So from 7:30 to 8:45. So Nicole Albert meets sister-in-law Julie, daughter Caitlin, and Caitlin's boyfriend Tristan at Waterfall. Meanwhile, John O'Keefe and friend Michael Camerano arrive at C.F. McCarthy's across the street. So the issues with this, the police reports here are incorrect. They list Julie as Nicole's sister instead of sister-in-law, and they list her daughter as Tristan instead of Caitlin, and they leave the boyfriend unnamed. So automatically, like
original police reports, you're saying, was that the Canton PD?
That was the I think that was the original, whichever in the statements that they had, from I don't remember which one it was. It's on my main spreadsheet that I didn't have pulled up, but there's in different statements, different things change. So Tristan was listed as the boyfriend, and it was spelled wrong. So there's a lot of different things that are spelled wrong too. But and it says here that Julie or that Nicole arrived at this time, but then in later reports it says that Brian and Nicole said that or Brian and Nicole arrived together, which of course wasn't true. So there's just all kinds of.
All right, I was able to get it on my screen bigger. You just tell me when you want me to move it to the next one. How's that?
Okay.
All right, so this, if you want to read what it says under 7:30 to 8:45.
Nicole Albert meets sister-in-law Julie. Oh, that's the part. Julie Albert, daughter Caitlin, and Caitlin's boyfriend Tristan at Waterfall Bar and Grill. Meanwhile, John O'Keefe and friend Michael Camerano arrive at C.F. McCarthy's across the street. Okay,
I had a question about that. Yeah. Do we know how Michael Camerano, because this is like I just heard his name for the first time recently. Like, he was never mentioned anywhere, right? Until just recently, or was he in some original police reports?
It says that they arrived there together. That he and John and Michael arrived there together, and then also. But it doesn't really mention anything else about him. It doesn't say when he left or, anything like that. And there's also, he's mentioned in there when Mr. Camerano I think it's how it's worded, when they said that Karen told John's niece to call Mr. Camerano to come get her when she was freaking out the next morning.
Right. So I guess he's got a daughter that maybe is her age. I'm thinking something like that, like they're friends because their daughters are friends. I don't know. Like, he was never interviewed as far as I know.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because with him having been at least there when Karen arrived before they saw everybody, you would think that would be part of what they included in, their reports on, we talked to this person and he said this and he left at this time. So, but there's no mention other than just that he arrived. And
right.
That was
so
it.
We don't know if he drove John there. Do we know how John got there? I had a question about that too. Somebody said he Ubered there. I don't know. He didn't have a car because Karen was the one driving home. So
right.
It's unclear, right?
Yeah. It's unclear. There's nothing in any of that about, which, I mean, so much of this is unclear, which is why everybody questions it. But yeah.
Well, no, a lot of people don't question it at all. They think 100%.
Yeah,
she backed into him with her car at 24 miles an hour. But in any event, we will get to that. All right. So they start their drinking or their bar hopping at 7:30. And
yes.
Tristan Morris is really never mentioned again. That's kind of odd to me too. Like, he's just kind of left out of it.
I have issues with this too, because, and I mentioned this, I think on the next one. So this kind of breaks some of it down. So at 7:30 is when Nicole arrives to meet Julie. 7:37 is the time that John arrives. But the problem is they have, when they're talking about Tristan, they say that Tristan and Caitlin are at Waterfall Bar, but they don't say anything about them leaving. And they say that Tristan came to pick Caitlin up from the house at 12:15. So they were together at Waterfall, but then Tristan came to pick her up from the house, but we don't know how anything happened in between. There was, I think, parts of the interview that they did way later with Sarah Levinson, I think is what it was, right, who said that that Caitlin arrived back at the same time as everybody else, like from the bar. So that's not the direct quote, but but that was the gist of it. But is that when Sarah Levinson was at the house for Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday, Caitlin arrived back with the rest of the group. So if Caitlin arrived back then with the rest of the group, then how would she have left at 12:15 for Tristan picking her up? So that part is very unclear and doesn't really seem to make sense.
Right. And as far as I know, I've never seen a statement of Caitlin. Have you? And I as far as I know, she did not testify in front of either grand jury.
I haven't seen anything from her.
So she's a wild card. Like, if they subpoena her to testify, that's what's risky. You know, if you subpoena someone to testify as a defendant, you don't know what they're going to say on the stand. So that could be risky. But yeah. I find it curious, like, why this is a dead police officer in New York. When a police officer dies, whether it's on the job or not, you know, heaven and earth has moved to investigate it and investigate it properly. And so it just boggles my mind the way this was so completely bungled. I'm going to say bungled from the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, we do this for a living, right? We look at investigations, we look at trials, we look at evidence.
Yeah. My big thing is too, like, okay, let's just say that for the sake of argument that she did it, she's guilty, she hit him either in a rage or on accident or whatever. The problem is that when you have so many issues with the investigation and the, you know, way that things were handled, plus all of the conflicting statements and all of this, when you have all of that, it automatically brings up doubt anyway. So even if she is totally guilty and she was like, look, I'm going to show him who's boss, like, let me just run over him in the snow. And like, even if that were the case, the fact that everything was handled the way that it was has caused that this whole conspiracy thing that, this is a direct result of that behavior and those actions and those mistakes. So,
Right. And Lady in Gray here says there's so much reasonable doubt in just the investigation before you even get to any evidence, right? And the chain of custody and everything else. And I think that's why it's, I don't know, it just seems obvious to me that there can't be a conviction here, but call me crazy. We were talking before the stream started that sometimes when you're following this case, you think that you're in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
How could this happen?
Yeah.
And how could nobody see it, I guess? But this is the way it is. So at 7:30, Nicole Albert arrives. Nicole meets her sister, Julie, her daughter, Caitlin, and Caitlin's boyfriend, Tristan, at the waterfall.
Yeah. It says per police reports, or per that first report, sister Julie, but it's sister-in-law. Yeah.
Right. Wait, her sister-in-law. Oh, right. Okay. So her sister.
They say sister. Yeah. But
her sister is Jen McCabe.
Nicole Albert's sister
Nicole's
is Jen
sister
McCabe.
is Jen McCabe. Right. Nicole.
Yes.
So Julie is her sister-in-law. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. But, and then 7:37 is when John arrives, at CF McCarthy, and it says across the street. If anybody's seen the map, it's kind of like across and down. It's not like directly across the street, but it's right there in that same little area. And he arrives at 7:37, and he had gone. This part's not on there just because it started earlier, but he had gone earlier into Kevin Albert's pizza place, and so I think he had talked to them earlier in the day, knew that they were going to be out. So.
Oh, okay. So that's how he was meeting up with them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then, so the party grows. So 8:45 to 10 o'clock. So during this time is when Karen arrives at CF McCarthy's to meet John. Matt and Jen McCabe arrive at Waterfall, and their friends Nicholas and Karina. I'm going to say this wrong. Kolokithis? Kolokithis? Nicholas and Karina K. During this time, and I have a note down here, during this time, Karen is said to have had 3 drinks handed to her and 2 shots poured into her drinks. Now, you can see on the chart, I have the times of what they said they saw on the cameras. Now, we have not seen this video. This is per the PCA and statement of case and all of that. It says that that's what was handed to her.
Right. So it says at 8:58, she got handed a drink. At 9:15, she got handed another drink, and then 9:20 and 9:33, she got handed shots. Or is that what that is? The shots?
Yeah.
And then another drink at 9:57. And they say they have this on video.
Mm-hmm. From the surveillance inside of CF McCarthy's.
Do they say that on the video they see her drinking them, or she just is getting them from the bar? And if they're so diligent in getting this video, did they also have an actual receipt from the bar that is, itemized of everything that whoever she was with paid for, or that she paid for?
I looked for that because I wanted to know the same thing, and it doesn't say. It says for the shots that she took the shots and she poured them into her drink, into her cylindrical glass, I think is how they worded it. But it doesn't say anything about her drinking them or handing them off or anything like that. But it insinuates that these were all hers, but it was not specified.
Yeah, there's a lot of insinuations, and I would think that if they had an itemized bill, right, it would say, oh, and the bill reveals that, she on her tab, was 17 shots of vodka or Tito's, and 3 Tito's and sodas, or 4. I feel like they would say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're so anxious to talk about this video, which, as someone who looks at the evidence, it doesn't mean anything to me because we don't know what was in the glass if we don't have a receipt or a bartender who's going to testify that she even actually drank it, or if she was buying a round of shots for the table.
Right. Yeah. 8:45, Julie texts John. So Julie is over at, and you can see the map kind of, they're what I mean by kind of across the street, but a little bit down. Julie texts John and says that they are at Waterfall and tells him to join them.
Yeah, I have questions about that too. Why is Julie texting John? Like, are they friends? Like, all these women are texting John all the time, and I have questions about that. Like, what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I know that with some of, like, I know that I have my group from, that I know from for decades, and a lot of us will text each other, but so I don't know, but at the same time, I don't know how close any of them were, because like even in the statements, Brian and Nicole both said that they didn't really know John that well. They'd only met him a few times. They didn't know Karen at all. So I don't know. I mean,
I don't know either, but apparently everybody wanted him there. All the women, all the ladies are texting John all the time.
Yeah.
And look, if that was my boyfriend, I might get pissed off about it too. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so Karen joins them.
Yeah, Karen joins them. So she meets John and Michael at CF McCarthy's, and she is seen entering at 8:51 on their camera.
Right. Oh, look, we got a recovery addict raid. Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hello, it's Cox. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you and welcome all the recovery addicts people. He talks so highly about you.
I love
and me as
recovery
well.
addicts.
So we do love Scott, our recovery addict. He's amazing. So welcome our friends. All right, so Karen joins John and Michael and is seen entering at 8:51 p.m. And they go into great detail to discuss what she's wearing. Do you notice that?
Yes.
But I don't notice that do they discuss what John is wearing in such great detail? I'm not sure.
They say what he's wearing, but not like, I think they said like a long sleeve shirt, and they were specific about his hat, the hat that had the American flag on it, but I feel like it was a lot, to me, it seemed a lot more detailed for her.
Well, we saw video, and I'm not sure which bar it's from, but where she's kind of like grabbing him around the waist, and she puts it, and we see the belt, right? And now we've never heard about this belt again. I don't know if the belt is in evidence, but do you know anything about the belt?
That is something that I've actually got on my next episode. A lot of people have asked me about the stuff with his clothing. So episode 8 is going to be about all of the additional evidence, like the clothing, the DNA, the hair that may or may not be a human hair, the dog, all of that. So I have been on a wild hunt for the belt to find anything I can about the belt.
Find the belt either, so I'm not missing anything. Okay, just want to clarify again that I'm not completely insane and in the Twilight Zone once again.
Yeah. Okay, so the McCabe's arrive at 9. So Matt and Jim McCabe arrive at Waterfall, and their friend Nicholas arrives with them as well. His wife did not get there until, I think she's on the next one. His wife got there next. So they're not mentioned often, Karina and Nicholas, but one thing that is they specify about Karina is she's the one, and I think it's on the next slide if maybe. Yeah. So I have the report in here of exactly what they said. They said that for a period of time, she spoke to Karen and said that she was drinking vodka sodas. And she said that she was pushing quite a bit for a member of the group, Chris Albert, the owner of the local pizza shop, to go across the street after leaving the bar to keep partying while he made pies for everyone. And this was also she said that during the conversation that she had with her, she complained about having, Karen had complained of her about having a lack of private time with John because of the victim's mother. I mean, look, I'm no judgment here. I think I don't know anybody who hasn't got drunk and complained about their mother-in-law, but they put that in there, which I thought was just kind of.
Listen, I mean, we can guess why they put that in there, to try and get John's family against Karen. And,
Yeah.
all signs points, if I had my little magic 8 ball from what I've read and heard, all signs pointed to the family loved Karen before Officer John O'Keefe's passing. So,
Yeah.
I find this to be curious. Again, this was another statement that was written by Proctor with no notes. And when did they interview her? It wasn't immediately. I do recall. I think I remember that. I don't think there's a date on this witness statement here, but
I don't think I have the.
what's interesting too about all of these witnesses who were with them at the waterfall is that every single one of them in their initial statement says Karen did not appear to be intoxicated at all.
Yeah. Yeah. They, which is crazy because they're talking about, I mean, not crazy, but it's definitely interesting. They all are saying that she wasn't slurring. She was talking normal. Everything seemed fine. But then they talk about how many drinks she had. So it's interesting because it's another one of those things that normally all of, or at least most of things point to one direction. But so you're thinking if they're telling you that you can see all of these shots and drinks and all of this, and they're saying that she got, drunk and angry and ran over him, then people would have said something about there being some kind of issue. But, the video shows them being all lovey-dovey. Obviously, we know that there was at some point like a drunken fight. She left voicemails. But
well, my theory on that is that she was really angry that he was not responding to her.
yeah.
She was texting like, did you get in okay? Are you okay? And then after a while, maybe she's sitting home. Maybe she's drinking when she got home, because I have issues with that whole blood alcohol level nonsense. And I don't think any of that is coming into evidence, by the way. But she could have been sitting at home drinking, waiting for him to come home. And then she fell asleep and she was getting mad. Sometimes when people drink, they get angry.
Yeah. And I have been in that situation too, and I've been very clear about this because I know that this does not paint me in a good light, but it paints me in an honest light. I myself, and I know pretty much everybody else that I know has at some point gotten drunk and like angry dialed, and left voicemails and done things. So for me, people that use that as like, see, look at what she did. To me, it's the opposite, because I'm like, okay, if she killed him, she's not going to call him and be like, I can't believe you did this,
Right,
like
I hate you. I hate you.
Yeah.
We've all done it. We've all left a voicemail that we wish we could retract. There's no option for that I know of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you have some women on the jury, that they might see that, and there may be some men on the jury who will be like, yeah, I've had voicemails like that before, when I ignored her texts and her trying to reach me in the middle of the night when I'm out with a bunch of women who've been texting me all night, by the way. So I think that people can understand that. And what I find so interesting is that the people that are screaming the loudest about that on the cesspool of Twitter are women.
Yeah.
Well, this proves that she definitely killed him, because she left these voicemails that she hated him and that he was, effing using her and that he effing cheated on her. And I don't know. I don't find it.
Wonder if their ex-boyfriends would say the same thing, because I guarantee that every single one of them that's saying that has an ex-boyfriend out there somewhere that has one of those voicemails on his.
That's right. Okay, so the parties continue.
Party continues. Okay, so the during this time is when Brian Albert arrives at Waterfall. Karen has 2 more shots, according to the video, at McCarthy's before leaving to join the group at Waterfall.
Okay, and what is interesting, and I don't know if you mentioned this here, but I'm going to say it now. Brian Albert, and I don't know who he was with, but they were in New York City that day. Yeah. It was the funeral of Officer Rivera, which I did a whole stream the other day, the day after the funeral, for police officer Jonathan Diller, who was from Long Island, where I live, and the sea of blue that came, and his widow, when she gave the eulogy, was referencing that funeral for Officer Rivera. And Brian Albert and I guess some of his buddies had traveled all the way to New York City for that funeral. So I don't know, were they drinking all day? I'm just going to take a guess.
Yeah. And that's something that's interesting too, because it says, I think it's on the next slide. If you look at the next slide, it says that Brian Albert arrives at Waterfall after returning from New York City. But according to his statement too, this is another issue with this. According to his statement, or at least what the, and again, we don't know if this is his statement or we don't know if this is the police getting another thing wrong. But according to the statement, he arrived with wife Nicole. We know that this is false, though. Nicole was already there. Her statement said she arrived at 7:30. From what, oh yeah, Higgins went with him to the funeral. Mm-hmm. So that is something that I have like on my side notes, but it's again not something that they had in any of these statements. It didn't say like, you know, he and Higgins arrived. It said, you know, the stuff with Higgins is very strange because parts of it he just kind of gets thrown in there, you know, occasionally, like, oh, right. By the way, he was here too. It almost like it's, you know, it seems almost intentional to try to keep him removed from it for whatever reason.
Like an afterthought. Yeah. And I've been curious about that as well. And then, you know, when I was on Core TV and there's another talking head who shall remain nameless from the FBI who said, everybody keeps forgetting about Higgins. Why does everybody keep forgetting about Higgins? And bringing that up like very vehemently during that appearance. And I was kind of like, you know, the person had said some stuff during that episode of Core TV also that no one knew about yet. So I'm like, where is this information coming from? Why are you bringing up Higgins? Like, it's just very,
Yeah.
Makes you say,
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So that's just more. And none of these witness statements, as we know, were recorded either by audio, video, or in any way. They were not handwritten and the witnesses did not sign them. This is all just based on Proctor's and the other Canton PD officers who came to the scene, their notes, which apparently there are no notes, right? Because didn't they ask for the production of the notes and they were told we don't have any?
Yeah, but you know what though? Isn't it the same FBI talking head that said that if it's not written down, it didn't happen? So I mean, I'm just using her own words against her. But yeah, with no notes and no recordings of any of these. And that's one thing that I've tried to stress too in not only the podcast, but in the live streams about it is like, I don't want to say, you know, like Jen McCabe keeps saying this, like Jen McCabe's statements, according to documents, keep changing, right. But we don't know if she is changing. So I've wanted to be very clear about that because we don't know where the inconsistencies are coming from, and I want to be very fair toward everybody who, you know, like until we find out specifically that it's from law enforcement or it's from the witnesses or whoever else, like you know. Well,
right, because there's no recordings and there's no notes. What we do know is that Proctor is the one who drafted that statement. He wrote that. So everything that he wrote, those are his words from his recollections of his version of what the witnesses told him, which makes it very interesting because it's going to be hard. People are saying, oh, you know, they don't have to call him to the stand. They have to call him to the stand. He's a lead investigator.
Right.
And without him, the case falls apart. And now that he's being investigated by Internal Affairs, his credibility is shot, right?
Right.
So I noticed during the last hearing or some of the papers that I read, the Commonwealth called him the co-lead investigator. I picked
since when? You know,
since last week, all of a sudden are they going to try and get like Yuri Buchanek now to be the only one who comes on the stand to testify about all this stuff? Because it's not going to play well, I don't think, in front of the jury.
But see, it's another one of the things that they change as they're going. Like their theories on what has happened, they've changed that as they're going. So it's like when something doesn't work, they're like, well, we'll just try this a little bit and see how this goes. And it's another one of the things that has made people not trust anything. So
right, exactly. Yeah. All right, moving on. They Karen and John leave the waterfall at 10:40 p.m.
Yeah, they go meet everybody else. The CCTV shows them at 10:40, and it says that she has a drink in her right hand when she is leaving the bar. And the other statements say when she got there that they saw her walk in with a drink in her hand. So
right at the other bar. Okay, so we're gonna have to wait. I want to wait for the video on that to see. I want to see what the glass looks like. It's the same glass they found on the lawn.
Yeah. Julie texts John again. So this is the last text that she sent him that evening. It was 10:41. So this is again trying to get him to come meet everybody over there.
Okay, so so Julie is Colin's mom, right?
Yes.
And she's married to
Chris,
who owns the pizza place. Wait, Chris is the selectman in town, right?
yes.
He's a politician.
Yes.
Who owns the
Yes.
pizza place? Chris or Kevin?
Chris.
Her husband,
Ye-
Chris?
Yes.
Okay. And they lived on the same block at the time. They lived on Meadows where John O'Keefe lived, correct? Maybe that's how she knew him. They were neighbors and
Yeah, they had said, and I can't remember if it's one of the documents or something that I had heard from around. I can't remember exactly where the information came from, but it had said that they had lived close together, and I think the didn't one of the other ones used to live close to him too at his old house or something. So I know that he knows some of them through that. And like Jim McCabe, he knows her, his niece that he was taking care of, and her daughter. So I know that with a lot of them living in the same area and having him taking care of the kids, I know that that's where some of his connections came from with them.
right. I think they both lived on the same street, but I think that the Alberts moved before the night of this incident. But yeah, Julie is the one who wanted to get Proctor a gift.
Yeah.
And that was
yes.
the text message she sent to Proctor's sister on the same day that Karen was arraigned on February 2nd.
Yeah.
Tell your brother that when all this is over, I want to get him a thank you gift. So yeah, thanks Holly for bringing that up.
It's crazy, right?
All right. So what did she text him at 10:41? Do you recall?
It doesn't say. It just says that she sent him a text. And
like,
that
hurry
was
up, come on over.
Yeah, and that was the last one. And then the next time frame is at Waterfall. So Karen and John joined the group at Waterfall, and she reportedly still has the glass in her right hand. Documents say that she had one more drink and one more shot for a total of 9 drinks. I don't know if y'all can hear that. There's spring breakers screaming in the hall right now.
That's right. You live in the land of spring break. You have college students outside your window.
Yes. So they're saying that according to this, that she had a total of 9 drinks that night in just this short time that she was out. Now at the bottom here, I have, of course, all the issues that I try to list. According to the PCA, Karen denied having the glass in her hand when entering Waterfall. Also, Chris is not listed in anyone's statements as having arrived. So this is the first mention of him, and Brian Higgins is also not listed as present in any of their statements.
Well, that is interesting. Why are they trying to keep Higgins out of it? It seems like an intentional act to try and keep him out, but I guess we will see. Let's keep it classy in the chat. Is there like some bickering going on in the chat right now? Let's keep it classy. We do respect differences of opinion, but in a classy way. Let me just thank Duty Ron for I think that's Duty Ron who popped in here with the super chat. Hello, Duty Ron. Thanks for the 20 beans. Hey, Melanie. And guess when I see a thumbnail saying ladies night, I make sure to show up. Great discussion. Scott, one of my amazing moderators, said, I'm not wearing any lipstick tonight, Melanie. So that is out. And I'm like, it just means there's ladies on the screen. It doesn't mean you have to be a lady to watch it. All right. Thank you, Duty Ron. You're the best. Hope you're doing well with your shoulder surgery recovery. All right, so we're at 10:54.
Okay, so 10:54. We have John and Karen arrive, drink in Karen's hand. Nicole says in her statement that when Karen and John entered, they were positioned the opposite side of the high top table where their group was. Okay. And then I had her little drinks on there again. And then Julie leaves. So Julie's apparently, even though she's been texting him this whole time saying, come over, now she's got a headache. So she leaves, and statements say that she got a migraine soon after John and Karen's arrival and left, while Chris stayed back for a few more drinks. This is the first mention in any of the statements about Chris being there. So him staying there was the first time that his name was mentioned. So we don't know anything else about when he got there.
Right. But we do know, apparently, because we just learned this the other day, that he walked home. That was in the court page.
That's the first time. Yeah. Which is funny because I haven't updated this chart yet, but I think I even have a note in one of the things coming up about like, okay, how did he get home? Where did he go? We don't know anything about it. And so them saying that he walked home, that was the first mention of any of it.
Right. And I guess it's kind of convenient that Proctor didn't record them or take any notes or videotape them or even use like a little dictaphone, because he can just say, well, my statement was wrong. I
Yeah.
made a mistake, like they tried to do the other day, saying, oh, Buchanan wrote the statement wrong. It wasn't really what he said. So
Right.
we're going to have to look out for that at trial and see how that plays out in front of a jury.
Yeah. And then leaving. So the majority of the party left for Brian and Nicole Albert's house, included per statements were, well, it depends on what statements, but per most of the statements, were Nicole's sister, Jen McCabe, her husband, Matt, Karen Reed, and John O'Keefe. So you see that the discrepancies part on this one is kind of big. Discrepancies. Brian Albert's statement says that he didn't know that John and Karen were invited. Jen McCabe's January 29th interview said that Brian Albert is the one who invited everyone back to his house. And in her February 1st interview, she said that she invited John and Karen to come back to the house because it was Brian Jr.'s birthday. Sergeant Lang's report said that Brian and Nicole said that John had been welcomed to come to their home but never arrived. And then the other thing, another one of the inconsistencies here, Chris Albert says that he left in the opposite direction, but he didn't specify where he went. And then Sergeant Buchanan's report says that Chris and Julie followed to Brian Albert's home after leaving Waterfall. So which is it? So that was one thing that they brought up. We saw that in one of the recent filings where they said that, they brought up that inconsistency when she was talking about leaving. And I guess in her federal grand jury, because that report said that they followed, they also went. They followed to Albert's house. So
right, and I've been pointing that out a lot. And as they kept saying she went home with a headache, I'm like, wait, I saw somewhere that they said that they went back to Nicole and Brian's. I know I saw it. Like I thought I was going crazy, but thank you for pointing that out because we both, I think, pay attention to detail and like I remember things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're going to explain that either. But we'll see. There's so many inconsistencies in the statements of the different witnesses.
So many. All right, and then at 12:10, CCTV shows Karen leaving Waterfall. It says with two females. That's what the PCA and the statement of case say. Now, there have been other statements that say that her and John walked out together. But according to CCTV, it says that she walked out with two females. And then moments later, John is seen walking out with a glass in his right hand. And the video shows that snow had started falling.
Yeah, I want to see what that glass looks like. And I want to see if it matches the glass that was found on the lawn, because in the original, the Canton PD reports, their evidence collection calls it a drinking glass. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if you noticed this, but then in the court documents, it all of a sudden became a cocktail glass at some point.
Yeah.
So was it a drinking glass? Was it a cocktail glass? Why did they never go inside the house to see if those types of glasses were inside the house? Because if they were, that would have proved that he had been in the house, perhaps. Just wasn't done.
Yeah. It shocks me that they didn't go in and, I mean, not that they have to automatically jump to conclusions and say, I bet you did this, but I feel like part of the job is to at least rule it out, know?
Yeah.
So.
And Lank did go in the house because he did go in the house to take their statements, because we didn't know that until I think recently either. I didn't anyway. Originally it was reported that nobody went in the house, but then all of a sudden Lank did go in the house to take the statements of like four of them all as a group.
Yeah.
Which is also something that is against police procedure. You interview witnesses separately. All of my retired law enforcement friends and mods in the chat will tell you that.
Yeah. It's and the only thing that's even mentioned about going in the house is that I think that it just says entered the house and talked to them. That's it. Not, entered the house, everything looked fine. None of that. And that's just, I think it's just surprising and also kind of alarming to, like I said, just to rule it out. Just,
Right.
But okay, so driving. So I have the map on here of kind of where they were going and what was happening at the time. So after leaving Waterfall, Karen drove while John communicated with Jen McCabe to get the address and directions to Nicole and Brian Albert's home. CCTV footage shows Karen's SUV at various spots on the route, and John's phone pinged in the neighborhood for the first time at 12:19:33. So the little side notes on this. Brian Albert Jr. was celebrating his birthday at 34 Fairview. According to Sergeant Lank's report, Brian and Nicole said that Brian Albert Jr., Caitlin Albert, Julie Nagel, and Brian Higgins were all present at the home. But Tristan, which was incorrectly spelled Tristan in another report, picked up Caitlin at 12:15. It's unclear why he's picking her up at 12:15 when they were together at Waterfall before this. And also, I haven't even added to that part yet that she, according to Sarah Levinson's report, Caitlin arrived back with everybody else.
Right.
So I don't know. Why she...
Yeah, and it's curious. That's a great map. All right,
Yeah.
let's move on from there because I know you did an extensive deep dive into his phone.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
steps that were taken. So let me see if I can move this.
And the next one is just John and Jen talks. So at 12:14, there's some text and calls back and forth. This is where he texts and asks where to, and then there's a 44-second conversation, and this is one of the conversations that shows deleted from Jen McCabe's phone. Prosecutors say that they were not deleted intentionally from Jen McCabe's phone.
So which one was deleted? So at 12:14, he texts Jen where to, and then they have a call at which I assume she's trying to give them directions because they're lost, which also to me indicates that, there's all this Twitter stuff that,
Right.
well, Jen McCabe, Karen went to 34 Fairview before she went to Jen McCabe's house that morning.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't even know how to get there. And he's the one who put it into his phone in ways to find the directions. She obviously didn't know where they live. How would she even find her way there?
And she passed it. They passed when they passed Fairview and went a little bit further, and then it put had to reverse and come back. And then that's why when Ryan Nagel was pulling onto Fairview, and he said that he yielded for them, and that's why they kind of came up in tandem because they had passed Fairview. That's the reason that they were coming from that direction.
Right.
But she didn't know where he was going. And the next morning, that is something that I've it says in the court documents that Karen drove in the direction of 34 Fairview before going to meet Jen. And there is like a 10-minute period where if she had gone straight there, and again, it's snowing and stuff, so I know it's a little bit different, but there's like a 10-minute time frame that either she took one of the longer routes or she didn't know where she was going. If that time frame, if she did go by there, I talked about this in the last episode, because I do know that that's something that they've said. If she did though, I don't know that she could necessarily know exactly where it was, because like I said, she or like you just said, she got lost the night before anyway.
Right.
But there's obviously, she obviously doesn't really know where she's going. So
exactly, that's what I'm thinking. So let's move on to the next.
I have Caitlin leaving at 12:15, but again, this is we don't really know what happened.
We don't really know if that's true.
Yeah, according to statements, Caitlin leaves Albert's home at 12:15 when she is picked up by her boyfriend Tristan. Specifics are unclear as to how or why he is picking her up since they were already together. We do know that in Sarah Levinson's statement, she says that Caitlin arrived back to the house at 34 Fairview after the bar with Brian, Nicole, the McCabe's, and, quote, a few friends, including one friend of Brian Sr. that she did not know. I think this is pure speculation. This is not based on anything other than me pure speculating. I think that other friend is probably Higgins, because that's who had been with him earlier. And she said that there was a friend that when they got back from New York that he was with. So I'm assuming that's probably Higgins, but I don't know for sure.
Interesting. All right, we're going to need to take a quick break for just 1 second. Did you hear about this big, this AT&T data breach that they announced the other day? So, you were like end of February, there was like an AT&T outage, and everyone who had AT&T cellular service had like no service for like a whole day or two.
Oh yeah.
Tens of thousands of customers. And then they came out and said, hey, sorry, it was a software glitch. We were trying to update our software, but what happened was we're going to give everybody a $5 credit on their bill. And what actually happened, because this was released on Saturday, I covered this on my show, 74 million AT&T current and former subscribers' social security numbers, names, addresses were all released to the dark web. So everything is out there, and that's terrible. But this is a good time to take a little break from to hear about our sponsor of today's show. So here you go. Did you know that the odds of falling victim to online crime are 1 in 4? Online crime is soaring. It's time to get smart about online safety. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura provides everything you need to protect your privacy, identity, finances, and your family in one easy-to-use app. Do you even realize how much of your personal information is already out there, being sold by data brokers to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you? Well, if you Google yourself, you may find something like this. And it may shock you to know that your full name, home address, email address, health records, and even relatives, it's all out there. That's one of the reasons you need Aura. Aura shows you which data brokers are selling your information and automatically submits opt-out requests on your behalf. Not only does cleaning up this information reduce the amount of spam that you get, but it will protect you from hackers who could use the information to help them access your social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also helps protect me and my family from online threats by providing antivirus and malware protection, a secure VPN with military-grade encryption, credit monitoring, spam call protection, parental controls, password management, identity theft insurance, and more, without having to download several different apps. It's really easy to set up. And best of all, I get everything at one affordable price. With the family plan, Aura will help you protect your kids by blocking harmful content, managing how much time they can spend online, and providing you with peace of mind while they game with cyberbullying and online predator threat alerts. I value my privacy and my online safety, and I value yours too. So go to aura.com/Melanie Little to start your 2-week free trial, because you can't put a price on peace of mind. I've also put the link in the video description below. You can thank me later. I have to say that for 12, it starts at $12 a month, and included with that, you get a VPN. And I was paying more than that for just a VPN. So I'm a fan. That's all I got to say. And listen, you got to protect yourself online, right?
Yeah, I paid double that to do that. I just now signed up with Aura, but I paid double that when I was trying to, because my thing is you can Google people, like let's say the people who don't like what we're saying on our podcast can Google us and then pull up, they were, pulling up information about my son and stuff. So I paid double that before I swapped over to Aura, but to remove all that stuff.
Yep. That happens to me too. In fact, I didn't start promoting it until all that stuff was gone. So, if you Google yourself, you will find your address and phone number and all kinds of things. So it's a good lesson. Thank you. All right. What time do you have until? Because I don't want to keep you longer than your whatever time you budgeted for.
It don't matter. I don't have anything else tonight other than passing out at some point, hopefully.
Other than getting all of these new subscribers who are going to subscribe to your channel. All right. So Caitlin leaves allegedly at 12:15.
Yeah,
but we don't really know if that's accurate until she gets on the stand.
Yeah. And then Jen arrives at 12:18:25, according to her phone, is when she arrives at her sister's house.
Okay.
So this is the ways where he puts the address in for Waze. So CCTV footage shows that Karen's SUV, it shows it at various spots on the route there, and John's phone pinged in the neighborhood is what it says for the first time at 12:19. Mm-hmm. So they weren't sure where to go, so John entered the address into the Waze app at 12:20.
Okay.
So this is I did a whole separate one for this part. So if you scroll down a little bit, there's a whole different, I did a different timeline for these few minutes because these are the most crucial ones while she's there. So on this part, the crucial crucial minutes or whatever. If you scroll down on the website, like there's a whole nother, right there.
Oh, look at that. Crucial minutes. Oh my gosh, you are a wealth of information.
Because this is like the most important time, because this is where, they're saying that this is the time that she was at the house. This is what they're saying, is the time of what happened. So everything kind of goes down to these few minutes. And I have it kind of mapped out here. So
I'll make this bigger for you. Okay.
Yeah. And this is kind of like just an overview of what happens during this time. There's like the Apple Health data that shows the 3 flights of steps and the 3 flights of stairs and the 80 steps that were taken. The orange shows that's the time that Proctor and Gorino's reports say that Karen and John were driving around in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. The arrival, according to that, says 12:24. The Commonwealth, that original, it's not even in the statements now, that original reconstruction thing that they did. And they were saying that the impact happened at this time. And
right.
Coffin Daffer was real big about 12:25 is, that's the time. And so that was their original time based on that. And then Ryan, Richie, and Heather are present around that time because we know that they got there same time as them and left. They said they were about 5 minutes. So that kind of marks all that. But the thing is, you can see that red X where it's their point of, their time of impact.
Yeah.
There's 36 steps recorded on his phone, and there's an answered call after that. So that, of course, wouldn't add up with that being.
He's not answering calls if he was already hit and killed, according to their theory. So they're going to have to change that time.
Right. So on the next slide, it's the 80 steps and the 3 flights of stairs is the Apple Health data. So this is one of the things that a bunch of people are arguing about too, of course.
Yes.
So the step data, I wanted to see how accurate the step data is. And when I did the podcast episode about this, I pulled some testimony from previous experts in different trials about this and had them testify. I also found a study about this, and the link for the study is on the website too if you want to look at it. But they said that the study says that the accuracy is extremely high. It's within 2% is the averaged error for the steps that are taken. Now, the distance that's traveled, however, can deviate like a pretty good bit. So you may, if it says, that you took 100 steps, you may have taken, 98 steps. But if it says you went 100, feet, it may be way off on that part. So the steps, it said, according to all the studies and everything I found, the steps are pretty accurate, but the distance is not as accurate. So
it wouldn't record steps if you were not actually moving.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And it says that if the steps are accurate, they didn't say, I wrote on here, if the steps are accurate, either the manually plotted data points or the timing of the steps would have had to have been off. So that's another thing too. I've heard a lot of people saying the manually plotted, they're saying like the GPS points. It's a distinction that I think is just important. Maybe in other cases it wouldn't be, but in this one, with there being so many issues with Proctor and with the investigation, it's important to note that when Proctor and Gorino went out there to do the GPS points, that is not, those pictures that you're seeing are not just something that they pulled from a report. They went out there and they did this in like a phone app. They put in the stuff from a phone app. Also, those points that they give, if you notice, the points, I did it on, I think I put it on, I responded to somebody's Twitter with it, but if you look, it makes it look like it's like, oh, they're all going this way, and then you get down here, and then they're all right here. But if you actually plot them in chronological order the way that they are, it's like, it's up and down the street like this. It's not going, it's kind of tricky to look at it, or misleading to look at it, and it makes it look like it's just going down here like no big deal. But that's not how it is if you do it in the actual order. It bounces around a lot.
So are you saying that Guarino and It was Procter and Guarino that did this. Like whatever app they were using is not something that's typically used in law enforcement to do this type of forensic investigation.
I have not seen it used in another
Okay.
trial.
Yeah, I mean, it was more like a consumer type app and like a yardstick, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
I had Sean McDonough on another time, and he was like, they had like a yardstick, like a yardstick. Like that's what they were using, a yardstick. It was great. Okay.
The blue shows where they like their the way that they went because they missed roads and stuff. So they went up and around, and then this shows the manually plotted points from Trooper Proctor and Trooper Guarino showed John's phone location, suggested that the car was turning left onto Oakdale from Maplecroft at that time, and then the next one is just the next turn. Like this, just kind of the next few slides just kind of go through their turns that they're doing, and then according to the manual plotted points from Trooper. And I know that I repeat this when I'm doing each of these, but I feel like it's one of those things that it's a very important distinction. So I've made sure to say it every time. But the John's phone location.
You're not a techie, but you understand this stuff a lot better.
Yeah.
I started hearing about this, and my eyes glazed over. I'm like, I just don't. Like, you have a very firm grasp on the understanding of this piece of the case, which I love.
Because I feel like it's so crucial. Like I tell people, like the reports can be wrong, and the statements can be wrong, and the witnesses can be wrong, but data doesn't lie. And there's what we call anchor data, and then the interpreted data. So like the anchor data is like the things that you can't argue with this. Like there was a phone call at this time. There was, video of, ICU at this time. Some of it is, there's going to be a little bit of variation, and there's going to be, open interpretation for some of that. But this is one of those things where it's like the,
right. It's going to hinge on the battle. A lot of people are saying battle of the experts, but when you get down to it, you did a whole video on the 227 search. Yeah. And you really dumbed it down for me, which I really appreciate, because the way that you explain that in that 20-something minute video shows that it's really not a battle of the experts. And here's the other problem Norfolk County is going to have, is that they are going to, you can't use it as a shield and a sword. You can't say in Karen Reed's case, none of this stuff was accurate. But you know what? In Brian Walsh's case, it's 100% accurate.
Right. Yeah.
And that Brian Walsh is being tried in the same counties, same investigators.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's funny because I did that 227 search, that 20-minute video took me hours and hours of research and talking to different people and talking to a programmer and somebody who worked for Apple and somebody who worked for Celebrite and, understand. And one of the things that I didn't know, as many cases that I followed, one of the things I didn't know was about the he was talking about the cat and mouse game between Apple and Celebrite. And I had no idea. And it makes sense when I hear him explain it, having worked there, like I hear him explain it and I'm like, oh, okay, I get that. Like that makes sense to me. And until he explained that part, I didn't understand any of the other stuff about, well, okay, but how are they not getting it? How do they not? So
maybe
it was interesting.
Give a quick rundown after we don't have to go through every single one of these slides if you're short on time, but you do an excellent breakdown of all of this crucial information. And like you said, these are the crucial 15 minutes and why what they did may not be very accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even like the time that, they arrived, the time that, and I have in this part and people can, like it's on 13jurorpodcast.com, so you can flip through it as much as you want to, but it's
wait, say that one more time.
The thing that's so interesting about this
just went out for me for one more
second.
second.
I talk fast.
It on what.com? Yeah, no, you just broke up.
13thjurorpodcast.com. It's like 13thjurorpodcast.com. So you can kind of like flip through it and go through them all. But I put a lot of detail into it because the devil's in the details, and especially with something like this. I think one of the main issues with this part, you see like the part that is on right now where she reversed because they missed the turn and went. There was a lot of talk about how, the car showed that she put it in reverse. Okay, but because she missed a turn. So, but they never did specify, they didn't give those crucial specifics on when it was put in reverse. And so I think that's something that, if they're going to convince a jury that Karen's guilty, they're going to have so much more than what,
Right.
what they've seen.
So she reversed because she missed where she was going. That is a great point.
Yeah. And then arriving, so 12:24:28 is according to the forensics affidavit of Richard Green. John O'Keefe arrived around that time. And then, of course, the issues, it contradicts the Apple Health Times. And one thing about the Apple Health Times, too, is that, again, while the number of steps that you take may be accurate, the timing of it is not 100% accurate. So if it gives you like this 4-minute period where these steps are taken, that those could have all been taken at the beginning or all at the end or kind of in between, or, there's also some variation in that. It'll give you when they're taken, but not specific
spacing between. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I get it. Okay. So they're saying he arrived at 12:24. That's what Guarino says.
Yes, 12:24:28 is the arrival time that they have. And then, of course, that's the same time that Ryan, Nagel, and then Richie and Heather arrived, too. They pulled in behind them. They had showed up because they were going to give Julie a ride home. And she came out to the car and then left. Something that was important about this, though, and why it goes directly against what they had originally said about the 12:25 thing, is because they were parked right behind them. Mm-hmm. And when they left, they said that there was no damage to the car. And he looked in and the interior light was on in Karen's car, and he saw her, but did not see John, did not see anybody in the driver's seat, in the passenger seat. But he saw her with the lights on, sitting, 10 and 2, and no damage to the car. So if they pulled up at the same time and he left, then he would have been there during that 12:25, impact. And obviously he would have noticed if the car directly in front of him had pulled up 62 feet and then back 62 feet and hit somebody. So that, of course, goes against what was
right. And he did say in his initial statement that she was in the car alone. But then, the statement evolved to he saw her in the car and didn't, and so.
Yeah.
I have more questions.
So many questions.
12:24:40. According to the data of the troopers, she parks at the flagpole.
Yeah, there's different statements say that they saw her move at some point. The data points that were plotted said that she moved about this time, 12:24. So this is the time that they said that she moved forward and parked at where the flagpole and the fire hydrant are. Of course, Jen McCabe's statement said that it conflicts with this, or however Jen McCabe's statement was written and told to us, I should say. It said that she texted John to pull up behind her car because she saw them parked by the entrance of the driveway, which is on the other side of the yard, not where this is. So that goes.
And everybody was looking out the window the whole entire time, apparently, because she and Matt and a whole bunch of people said they were looking out the window the whole time and knew exactly where the car was, but then they didn't get concerned when nobody came in.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the impact. I've already we talked about this a little bit about the 12:25 thing and all the different issues there are with it. It's just not possible. The 12:25 impact and the driving forward 62 feet or whatever it was, and, reversing and all of that and hitting him at 12:25. It's just not possible.
The devil's in the details.
Yeah.
As you say.
Yeah.
And here's the whole graphic about the Jen texting John.
Yeah. So these are all of the text, and also it shows some of her steps. And I have it differentiated between the watch and the phone, because a couple of them are just the watch. But and then, of course, his steps. He's got that one little, block of steps right there, too. Those are the last steps that are recorded on his phone until the next day, or, the morning. But those are all of the calls and text during that time.
And we know that Karen got home at 12:41.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of hubbub about this missing ring footage from when she came home that night. What do you make of that?
So I've thought a lot about this, because my thing is, I try to argue it out in my mind as if I'm on each side. So I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be one of those that's like trying to convince people that Karen's guilty, how would this, how would I say it? Like, of course she did it, But even then it's like, okay, well, why would she delete that part and not the part where she's backing up? Because when she pulls in, you can't see anything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be no reason, I would think, to delete that. None that I can think of that, to delete that. And then the opportunity to delete it is the kids said that they think that she may have been able to access it through the, home computer. But we know for a fact that the police accessed it from John's phone. It is written in black and white in documents that they accessed that footage from his phone. Yep. So that is that. And now when I read that, I was like, what? Without like a warrant, without a,
100%. 100%. A lot of people say, and Carrie B says, I think it was proctored, but he deleted the wrong video. And we don't really know, do we, the chain of custody of his phone?
No.
After his body was found, and after they say they found it underneath his body.
Right. There's nothing in the statements. And this is something that I did. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I went back, double, triple checked, asked in different groups, like, am I missing something? There was nothing about it. And then there was the one statement that said, while on scene, Proctor collected the phone. But then it's like, okay, but Proctor wasn't there. So
Proctor never went to 34 Fairview on that day. He was never there.
Nailed
All
it.
These people are innocent.
Sound just like him. Yeah. So, and I even have, I compared the steps on his phone that were recorded to who was there that morning. In my last episode, I was like, okay, the phone was picked up and started moving at 6:15. The only people there at 6:15, Jen McCabe, like, as far as, the only people there, period, that we know of. Jen McCabe, Carrie, Karen, Seraph, and Mulaney, I think, were the only ones that were there. So it had to be, because even Buchanan, or Lank wasn't there yet. He didn't get there until like 6:24 or whatever. So it had to be one of them. And there's nothing in any statements about any kind of chain of command with any of them.
Right.
Who had the phone.
Or any chain of custody. So we don't know who had the phone when, but we know that it started moving again at 6:15. And if it had been out there for hours in the freezing cold, do you think it would have died, or do you think it would have stayed on? Like, I'm curious about that as well.
I mean,
I thought of that.
I know that there was a trial that I covered before where the killer didn't want the phone to be able to be tracked, so they put it in the freezer because iPhones stop working when they get cold.
That's great information.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And also, what do you make about how many phone calls did Jen McCabe make, according to the phone data? How many phone calls did Jen McCabe's phone make to Officer John O'Keefe's phone between the time that they say that he was killed, 12:33, and the next morning? There's a lot of them, right?
There's a lot of them, yeah. Yeah.
Why? Why was she calling him so much?
I don't know. I've thought about that both, and I've tried to look at that from both sides. Like, okay, if she doesn't know anything about anything, then, she could have been worried about him. And then I try to look at the other side. Okay, if she does know something, then what if she was trying to find his phone? What if the phone had been dropped, or what if, so I try to see from both sides and try to figure out, what makes the most sense.
Right. A lot of people in the chat are saying looking for the phone, but yeah, would she have been worried at him to the point, because she says, they left and I didn't think anything of it, which belies the fact that she called him something like, I'm going to say something like 26 times. So I think it was something like 26 times.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. If she thought nothing of it when he left, why would she be calling somebody else's boyfriend 26 times unless there was a reason? If there was some sort of melee, maybe the phone got displaced and they needed to find, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't see any otother reason for making all those calls.
I know it's hard to explain. And, one of the things that was the hardest for me is because I'm not normally I'm not a conspiracy theory type girl.
Right.
not a conspiracy theory gal, not my thing. When the 227 search thing came up, that was the first thing that I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, okay, why? How would that be? And I know that, and I've seen even in the most recent documents that I've been going over, they're still saying that, Commonwealth's still saying that that the defense just misinterpreted that data. But that's the whole reason I wanted to talk to, because I don't know. I'm not, who am I? I don't, I turn mine off and turn it back on. If that doesn't fix it, then I'm at a loss. So I went to people who do know this type of stuff. And so the 227 search, one of the things that the programmer that I was talking to, he said.
Okay, so let's just, for the people in the chat who don't know what we're talking about. A big problem that allegedly Jen McCabe's phone Googled how long to die in the cold, or how long to die in cold, at about 2:27 a.m. She then Googled it again twice in the morning, right after the body was found, and deleted some of those searches. But one of the big contentions in this case has been experts originally who said that no, she was Googling something else at 2:27 and it reverted back to 2:27. Explain that a little bit before you explain what you learned, and I'm going to give you the full screen for this because it is so important that you deserve a whole big close-up.
So the thing about the 227 is, if they're saying that the Commonwealth is saying that the search didn't actually happen at 227, that it I don't remember how they word it, bled over into it or whatever. The problem with that is, I talked to the programmer who said that that part is not open for interpretation as far as the search showing up at 227 but having been later. The search can show up at 227 if it was done anytime between 222 and 225, or I'm sorry, 222 and 227, within that 5 minutes, but not after. The first one, the one at 227, and then the second one that was done that morning are spelled the same. They're both spelled wrong, but those are spelled wrong in the same way. And then the one that was in between, the first one that was done in the morning, was spelled a little bit differently than even those. That's another important part, though, because the second search that was done in the morning, the 624 search, was how long, with the HOS, how long to die in a cold. And it shows on the sheet that they even have in there that it was from the recent searches. And one of the things the programmer said too is that even if you can get around the programming and try to work around and make somebody believe that it was done at 6 something and just happened to show up, at 227, the problem is that it's showing on this table where that search came from previous search history. So it was searched before. The programming, the way that it is, and this is like the basic Cliff Notes version, the full version is on a video if you are into all the tech stuff. The SQLite or SQLite is what they call it. It looks like SQLite. SQLite is used. It's a program that's used with the WAL files and all of that, where it does the write-ahead logs and all that good stuff. So this is used with iOS, and there's parts of the iOS programming that are involved in it too. And the part of the iOS programming is always like moving around all this data and how it gets put everywhere, like how it gets put on the database and everything, trying to hide it from people like Celebrite, because Apple wants to protect all of your data. So Celebrite is constantly chasing them around, trying to find all this data and coming up with their new versions to go for the new iOS versions, so that they can figure out where they're putting that data and figure out how to read it, how it's organized, and be able to create these reports that we see. It's also interesting too, something that I found during all of this is they have experiments and tests that you can pull up on Celebrite, where they're actually testing for all of these things to see if they can figure out how all of this data is written. The coding is set to where everything on those WAL files is put onto the database every 5 minutes at least. So if it's not triggered to be put on there by, like, let's say closing out a tab. If you close out a tab, it can automatically trigger the data to be written on from the, just the temporary WAL file onto the database or whatever. That can trigger it. But if, let's say you've gone 5 minutes, or if the WAL file gets to a certain size, but if you go to if you get to 5 minutes and there's been no checkpoint, is what they call them, where that data is written on there. If you get to that 5 minute point and there hasn't been one, it will automatically write everything that's in that temporary WAL file on the database. So he says that is how. It's not about expert opinion, it's about coding. You can have opinions all you want to on it, but this is how the system is written, and the system will not function without this code and it going like this. So there's no arguing with it, he says.
Yeah. So as Lally said, I think it was at the last hearing, the phone doesn't lie.
Yeah. Except for
lie. Right.
except for
when we say that it's going to lie. Here's an interesting question that I started from the other side. He says, why would someone in on a conspiracy Google incriminating searches? That doesn't add up either. I have a thought on this. I mean, at the time it wasn't a conspiracy, right?
Right.
And she also tried to delete all of these searches and then tried to replicate the search the next morning by spelling it the same way that she had misspelled it the night before, because she's not a data or technological expert, or her phone isn't, let's say. We don't know that she even did this. It was her phone that did it, right?
Right.
I mean, that's my thinking.
Yeah. And I mean, I find holes all the time in different theories, because it's so hard to understand how any of this could happen, and how, like trying to put together the pieces that we do have. And I try to poke holes and stuff all the time and see, what I could put together that makes the most sense. And I think that Googling that, and I've heard some people have said this too, like they think that, maybe there was something else that happened. If there was, people have speculated, like, well, maybe there was like a, fight and, out in the yard, and they got bad, and he, went down, and they thought that he would just get up at some point. And, when they left, they were like, well, how long does he have before he, wakes up from being passed out? Like, people have said that there's, those theories and stuff too. So because we weren't there and we don't know, it's so hard to try to make sense of some of these, but, Can you give your opinion on how long to digest food? A lot of people are very like gung ho about this one. Personally, just my opinion, I feel like how long to die, like DI, could have triggered that as an automatic. That's exactly what I thought. I haven't tried it, but I think if you start to type how long to DI, that may be one of the first searches that comes up, because perhaps a lot of people do search for that. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to go back to these slides, if there's any particular ones that you want to talk about, because I don't know how many are left and how much time you have. Again, I want to be mindful of your time.
I mean, the main ones, like, I know that there's a lot of debate about the library footage.
Why don't you talk about that a little bit? We don't even need to look at the graphic. You want to talk about the library footage?
Yeah, I have seen some of the debates going on about the library footage. We've heard in court where they're saying that those crucial 2 minutes that, from 12:37 to 12:39, those minutes are missing from that library footage, and that would be the time that Karen would have driven back by the house, or back by the library, to get to John's house. I have seen some of the Twitter debates saying, well, that's not the way she went. There is one other route she could have gone. It's not the fastest, it's not the most sensible. She could have gone that way. 2 out of 3 routes to get her home would have passed her by there about that exact same time. But if she did go that other route, there are cameras along that route. And they did collect footage from those. So I feel like if they had collected footage that showed her going by, then her defense attorneys wouldn't be in court demanding to get that, saying that she drove by this. If they know that she was at a whole different camera, at a whole at the same time, I don't think they would have been fighting for that. But
also, if she didn't know how to get home, because she didn't know where she was, she didn't even know how to get there, and she put the GPS into her car, how to get home,
Mhm.
Wouldn't they have that information of what route she took?
Yeah.
It seems like they would have that, right? Because the whole black box data and what do they call
Mhm.
it? The telematics system that they had so much trouble getting their expert to go and look at.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that information be in there? Or even they had her phone right away. If she just, because I sometimes just use the map on my phone to get me places, and then I have Apple CarPlay, and then it plays, so it would be in her phone if she did that. So I feel like it's like
Yeah.
kind of like a red herring. Is Brandi a lawyer too? Brandi is not a lawyer. Brandi, tell us a little bit about your background.
No, I am not a lawyer. I actually did I did sports marketing for a long time, which I loved. But I went to school for psychology. So, but one of my favorite classes was data visualization, and so I love taking the data and the stuff that paints a picture and actually painting a picture for it, like that makes it a little bit easier to digest. And I like to try to put all the pieces together to see what makes sense and what doesn't, and kind of,
Yeah, you
make
have
it.
an incredibly logical brain that I wish a lot of people had. But, Karen says if they make the jury watch Brandi's actual video on the Celebrite, there will be no other discussion necessary, not tonight's explanation, but her video. Yeah,
Yeah.
after the stream or later tonight, go over to her channel, which is linked below. And after you subscribe to her channel, I think you have that video like prominently displayed on your homepage, right?
It should be on there. It's one of the last like actual other than my lives, like it's in the video section. It's the last video that I did, and it's very like where I'm sitting here talking like we're just chatting right now, and I'm telling you about like kind of the techie stuff behind it. In that video, I had everything written out so that I could make sure that I got it exactly right how he said that it happens, and but it's very technical on how it happens. But when he explained it, that's when I was like, okay, so there's no argument for this. This
Right.
is just how it is, and this
You
is
can't
why.
have a battle of the experts. This is just how it is. I mean, their defense to that is, well, listen, the Celebrite version did not exist the first time that we analyzed this phone. So how could we possibly have that information if the Celebrite version didn't exist?
Right. Yeah, and I saw somebody had said, and I have not fact checked this, but I have it on my list of on my very long list. My very, very long list of things to do. Somebody had said that wasn't accurate, that the Celebrite version was able to pull those things. So that's something that, again, I have not fact checked that. It's just something that I want to, or if anybody else in all your free time, if y'all, want to look at that. But somebody had said that the Celebrite version, and I even had somebody who on Twitter who worked Celebrite was like, what? Who said this? And he had me he asked to see the documents and stuff, and I sent it. And I want to reach back out to him, like after I heard the other person say that. Now I want to reach back out to him and be like, so, Mr. Celebrate, why did you ask that? So weird. Like, what is there? Is that wrong? Is that not?
You can say
true?
that the Commonwealth's expert who said this originally was the guy that invented Celebrite, so he's the one who knows.
Yeah.
I don't even know that that's true, but thank you, Gretchen, for becoming a new member. And Future says, two of my favorite ladies on YouTube. So excited. Thanks for being a member for a month. Oh, Tina, thanks for the super chat. Says we both look beautiful. I'll take that. Oh, look, Nick Starro is coming in to say, Brandi.
Hi,
Thank you, Nick, for the super chat. Birdwatcher says, protest has a negative tone. We rally for awareness. That's great. You're talking about the motion for tomorrow. Thanks for being a member for 2 months. Liz, thanks for the super chat. Love this show. Thank you for all the legal information. You are very, very welcome. Lady in Gray, thanks for becoming a new member. I think you're going to like it here. Emmy says that Melanie and Brandi are the dream team. Thanks, Emmy, for your super chat. Hope always. This is interesting. Thank you for bringing this up because I hear this a lot. She says, I'm very concerned for Karen's poor poker face. I was hoping Attorney Jackson would work with her. Do you think the jury will notice all her eye rolling and frustration that I notice? And this is what I see in the cesspool of Twitter every single time I have the energy or the willingness to look over there, because I try to stay away from it because I find it to be toxic. But it's like her smirk. She's definitely guilty because look at her smirk. Look at her. Look at the way it's like, okay, you cannot convict someone based upon facial expression. And I'm not saying, Hope, that that's what you're doing, but I do see a lot of public animosity toward her. And
But
her
see, even before that, it was the same thing, but it was like, oh, she's got RBF. Look how terrible she. And so then it's like she went from, like face like this, and people were very down on her, to now, like, she has like that smirk or that smile, and it's the same thing. I think that, hopefully in front of a jury, people tend to be more aware, but also, okay, let's say she's got presumption of innocence. Let's say that this is an innocent woman who is being, like, come at from every angle, like trying to get her, like trying to take her freedom away. I would probably be a little bit, like snarky in my facial. Everybody on my channel right now is going, Brandi can't fix her face. So we know that she would, because I can't fix my face. But so
I think I'd be worse, quite honestly, because I don't know. It's very hard. I don't think anybody can put ourselves into her shoes. And that's why I think a lot of people find this so scary, because Karen Read could be any one of us.
yeah,
And she's been dealing with this for over 2 years. And, they took her car. She's got no car. She can't go back to her house. I mean, her whole life has been upended, as has the O'Keefes. And so it's always about justice for Officer John O'Keefe.
yeah.
I think in finding justice, we have to find the truth. And there's always at least 3 versions of the truth, right?
Yes.
Ricky, thanks for being a member for 2 months. Howdy, sweet friends, he says. And Sandy B, thanks for becoming a new member. Lauren Elizabeth, thanks for becoming a member. Jay Mansfield says, I don't think there were 9 drinks containing alcohol. She is tiny and would be falling down.
Yeah, it specifies like clear liquid is all it says. So, which again is where the receipts would come in.
If they have the itemized bill, it would say the itemized bill says that she bought 9 vodkas and paid for them. Like, it would say that, and that's why I have a hard. She also has IBS, MS, a brain tumor, and a lot of medical conditions that don't necessarily point to me to the fact that she's a heavy drinker. I haven't seen anybody who knows her come out and talk to the media and say, "Oh yeah, she's she gets drunk all the time. Like, she loves a drink."
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlene, for your super chat. You ladies are great together and both look fabulous. We'll take it. Thank you, Dr. Timmons, for gifting 10 memberships, and to all of the people who were gifted those 10 memberships. That's amazing. And P. Lola's mom, thank you so much for your super chat. I don't know. Do you have is there anything else you want to cover?
I don't think so. I think we've been through the rest of the timeline is on there, but that's kind of everything leading up to like those most crucial minutes. So I think, there's going to be a lot more that I'm sure we'll hear as it comes out. But
Ellie, thank you so much for your super sticker. That you were so appreciated. I was going to talk a little bit about the motion for tomorrow. I don't know if you want to stick around for that, if you have to leave or whatever you want to do.
No, I would love
against your will.
From you. I would love to hear this from attorney perspective. I would love to hear
all right. Well, my friends, tomorrow is a big day in Karen Read land, because tomorrow your First Amendment rights are at issue. This is a major problem. We went over the motion at length. It was a motion by the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth wants to enact a 500-foot buffer zone around the courthouse starting on the day of jury selection, during which time nobody would be able to enter that 500-foot buffer zone, which, for point of reference, is more than a football field and a half, including the parking lot to, I think, the Registry of Deeds. They also want to prevent anyone from carrying signs or wearing any shirts in favor of either side, both outside and inside the courtroom. Today, or yesterday, actually, a couple of people local to the area hired a private attorney to intervene on their behalf, and he filed a motion. Today, what shows up in the court file is that the ACLU of Massachusetts has filed a motion to intervene and an amicus brief, which is a brief that is filed by someone who considers themselves to be a friend of the court to help make the court's decision a little bit easier. I have not been able to get hold of a copy of that brief, but I find that to be very interesting. They are quoted in the Boston Globe today as saying, ACLU-M is an organization dedicated to protecting civil rights and civil liberties in the Commonwealth, including the rights of free expression and assembly, said the one-page filing from the ACLU. The memorandum is intended to assist the court by laying out standards that should be applied in determining whether or not to allow any portion of the pending motion for the buffer zone. As reasoning for its motion, the Commonwealth says that because the case has garnered intense pretrial publicity, and that Reed's supporters who come to the courthouse just for hearings cause a commotion, that they are asking the judge to grant this, what I think is a very big overreach. Now, some of you pointed out to me, and I saw that Larry, the DUI guy, did a rant last week on this. That is classic. And I'm going to play some of it for you today because I reached out to Larry to ask him if I could play it, because I would never play anybody else's content without first getting permission from them. And he gave me permission to play it for you. So to see someone that I had never seen cover the Karen Reed case before, that I wasn't really familiar with, he's called the DUI guy, and I will link his channel below. Also, I don't know, Brandi, if you've seen this, but this is going to be good. He does use the words, the cursey words in his. So I've tried to edit it a little bit so that we can get some cleaner parts of his rant. But, this is epic, and I suggest that the whole video is about 49 minutes long. If you're interested, I suggest that you go back and watch it. He's a First Amendment lawyer. And so he read this and he was outraged. He was outraged, just like so many of you were. So let's take a listen to what Larry, the DUI guy, has to say.
On April 16th, the problem with, God forbid, the judge grants that motion and there'll be no protests or peaceful, peaceful protests.
Started it a little bit too early. Let's go back to 5:50. Okay.
Deciding this motion. I hope she watches this video. I really do, because that's the Friday before the Tuesday trial, April 12th, and then trial is on April 16th. The problem with, God forbid, the judge grants that motion and there'll be no protests or peaceful protests, peaceful wearing memorabilia, free Karen Reed, justice for John O'Keefe, may Karen Reed rot in hell, whatever. It doesn't matter what your opinion is. You should be allowed to voice it. See, the problem with laws is the minute somebody starts taking away, like a bit by bit, you erode the entire amendment. Next thing you know, you can't protest at all. I mean, you couldn't protest during the trial. Why should you be allowed to protest at all? We'll take away your rights to protest. Oh, and those rights that you value so much, your right to have guns. Yeah, you don't need those anymore either, because you're not protesting. You don't need to protect yourself. Give us your guns too. You don't need your guns. Here's a Bobby. You can bonk your neighbor over the head if they do something unruly or sleep with your wife or whatever. Or that Fourth Amendment, the search and seizure. Nah, come on. We're just coming in for a little. You see where I'm going with this. That's how the destruction of rights occurs. That is how freedoms get eroded from you. That is how the government steals your rights. First they giveth, and then 250 years later they taketh away. And that's what I was thinking, Spirit Sky. That is exactly how Hitler started. And we do not want to go in that direction. I just don't want to capitalize too much on Nazism, because we're hopefully a far cry away from it. But that's how it starts. No picketing allowed, 500 feet. So I hope the judge makes the right decision. I'm going to say it right now. I hope she rules against them and denies this motion. So let's read the motion. The Commonwealth respectfully moves that this honorable court establish a buffer zone around the Norfolk County Superior Courthouse in Dedham, Massachusetts during the trial in this case. This case has been subject of substantial media coverage. There have been demonstrations on the sidewalks in front of the courthouse, on the courthouse stairs, on the stairs and sidewalks in front of the Registry of Deeds, and instances of individuals confronting and following potential trial witnesses to and from their vehicles for appearances at court proceedings. Again, this is the people we're talking about, you guys. This is the people voicing their opinions. What is wrong with that? Nothing. Nobody's getting hurt. People are just stating how they feel. Now, where the fuck did we lose that? Are you serious? You're upset because witnesses are being followed from the courthouse. Excuse me, Mr. Prosecutor, do you care to give a statement, you dipshit? Why are you prosecuting an innocent woman? Because that's my opinion. Well, you're not allowed to have an opinion anymore, lady. Oh my God. I'm about to have an aneurysm over here. Welcome to the real world, Mr. Government. People are going to have opinions, especially when you have an amendment that permits them to do that. Sorry, this shit gets under my skin when these. Remember that one prosecutor a few years ago? I remember when I started practicing law, he said, "We don't want to be referred to as the government. That is actually degrading and appalling." And the response was like, "Yeah, the defense attorney was brilliant. They were like, I would like to be referred to as the constitutional knight in shining armor or something like that." It was brilliant.
So I saw this and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I need to get permission to play this. I'm going to fast forward it a bit to the end, but you know, he's saying what we're all thinking. I don't know if this is his first video on the Karen Reed case, but his reactions are amazing.
Gotta love the passion.
Yeah, he's very passionate about the First Amendment. And you can see once they start taking your rights away, it is a very, very slippery slope.
Insane. That is absolute madness. That they are asking for a buffer, that you are not allowed to be within 500 feet to simply peacefully protest. I'm going to read this again because this is madness. Further, the Commonwealth requests an order from the court prohibiting any individual from demonstrating, holding up a sign in any manner, including carrying signs or posters, or making statements about the defendant, law enforcement, Norfolk District County Attorney's Office, potential witnesses, or the evidence within 500 feet of the Norfolk Superior Court complex, which includes the parking area behind the Registry of Deeds building during the trial of this case. See attached map, which we'll get to in a second. Now, that reeks, and again, I hate to use that word, but I'll just use a different word. That's a dictator. That is an absolute totalitarian request. This is basically the government going, you have no right to interfere in any way, shape, or form. Your First Amendment rights are eroded henceforth, and you are not allowed to speak on this issue within the confines of my building. That's what they're saying, and they're asking the judge to rule on it. That is absolute madness. That is Marxism. That is communism. That is dictatorship, totalitarianism, whatever label you want to put on it. It's an abuse of power openly, clearly. You don't have a right to a First Amendment. You don't have a right to exercise your freedom of speech. You don't have a right to speak your mind. You don't have a right to say how you feel. You can do it. Just do it 500 feet away from the courthouse where all the action is happening. Are you kidding me? The whole world is watching.
That's right. The whole world is watching. The whole world is watching. And you know what? From the deep dive that I did into the law on this case, this is something that Massachusetts has done before. They've done it before. And they seem to think that this anti-picketing law is constitutional. This could be a good test case for that. There's one more just piece of this because he talks about Lally at the very end, and it's a short piece. So let me get to that. What he thinks of Lally. I thought that was like, wow, that's crazy.
Can't call you brave. This is idiotic. I hope that you're just a pawn and Michael Morrissey is using you, but I hope this is not your own opinion, because when you drafted this, I hope you realize that you're probably going to get fired when this case is over. No offense, bud, but you better start looking for work. You're one of the heads that's going to roll when this case is over. There's no way, like the government is going to be like, we did not stand for the statement, and sorry, Adam Lally, you're fired. And trust me, you're probably better off.
Yeah, so that's that. which I thought was classic. What an amazing reaction to, it helps with our, am I crazy or am
Yeah.
I not crazy?
Yeah. Yeah. I like hearing others' perspectives on it too, especially when they're passionate about it, because I think that the more passion, because there are some things that, there are some things in this case specifically where I'm like, I could feel either way about this. And there are some things where I'm like, no, this is a big deal. And so I love anytime there's like the passion behind something, especially, I always love listening to that.
I keep going back to, the injuries. And that's the thing that stuck out to me the most, being a litigator for 30 years, who, in addition to handling all the sex abuse cases against the Catholic Church, I handled, hundreds, if not thousands, of car accident cases.
Yeah.
And the injuries that he sustained as a result of this accident are not caused by a low speed pedestrian versus car accident. They're just not. There would be lower torso and leg injuries involved here, which there are not.
Yeah.
And those arm injuries did not come from Alexis with teeth, in my opinion. So
right. That part's been really hard for me too. And I have Friday, I am interviewing Dr. Kenneth Kinsey. I'm not going to do it on a live. I'm just going to record it because it's going to be for the podcast. I want to get his, I know he's been on Court TV talking about it and stuff before, but he's a friend of mine, and I think he's just the bee's knees. I love him so much. And he's so smart when it comes to this stuff. And I had heard him talking on Court TV with Vinnie Politan about it. And he was saying, he was talking about how if they don't have a way to show where those injuries came from, that's going to work in the defense's favor, because if it doesn't line up. And I want to kind of pick his brain about that a little bit more. So I'm interviewing him Friday about that, because I'm not a doctor, but
Right.
he is, he's so brilliant in what he does in the, it knows all about like the injuries and the reconstruction and stuff. So I'm excited to pick his brain and see, have him expand on what he was talking about a little bit with that, because
what is his specialty?
He was in the Alex Murdaugh case. He was the one who did the reconstruction for that. He testified. He was like
So he's an accident reconstructionist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, and the one that the FBI hired, who was an independent guy with 3 PhDs, said John was not hit by a car and a car did not hit John.
Yeah.
Case
And
closed.
that's,
Not a
yeah,
battle of the experts. There's just no injuries that point to being hit by a car.
that, to me, hearing that in court too, I was like, okay, that's what I thought. Like, that doesn't look, that
Right.
doesn't look like it. So hearing that, it was like, okay, it's another one of those things. Okay, maybe I'm not as in the twilight zone as sometimes I start to think I am, because it is. There's that. And I worked in a body shop. My family had body shops for years. So
there you go.
I did, those taillights are hard to break. And when they do, it's generally with, backing into, like, if you're not just like full on like hitting a deer or something, I mean, it's going to be like backing into another car or a pole or, a brick mailbox or something like that. Not
a soft body.
Yeah.
People are saying, oh, his glass must have hit the thing and it shattered the taillight, and his glass, lacerated his arm. Was there glass in the arm lacerations? Because last I heard, they didn't even take tissue samples from the arm. So
Yeah.
good luck with that. But this is a great example. Jurors do not leave their common sense at the door. They come in to sit on a jury with their personal experiences. Now, you come from a family who owned a body shop. So I'm sure that they fixed many cars that were involved in car accidents and pedestrian hits. And if you hit a pedestrian from the front, it will also often shatter your windshield, because if they roll up onto the car, but it's not going to break the headlights. It just doesn't.
It just doesn't. And at that speed, there's not a way for her to have been going fast enough to cause, I mean, again, in my opinion, I don't understand how she could have been going fast enough in reverse in the snow, with nobody seeing or hearing anything, although they're all, seeing everything out the window. And multiple statements even said they saw her drive off, they saw her leave. But they didn't see that. So
and when they left at 2 a.m. or whenever these people left, it was after the time that they say that Karen hit John. Nobody saw the body, but they all drove in that exact direction where their headlights would have been pointed right
Yeah.
there where his body was, but nobody
Yeah.
saw it. Except
Yeah.
for one person's statement, Julie Nagel's statement changed, a year and a half later to say she saw something.
She
on the
saw
wall.
something dark or something. Yeah.
I wasn't sure what it was. Thank you to Leslie for the Venmo. Appreciate you so much. And Lori for the Venmo, who says, buy yourself some coffee. And Leslie said, I can't figure out how to do super chat or anything. Thank you so much, because YouTube takes 30% of the super chat. So, Venmo's like really totally cool too. Kelly Casano, thank you so much for your super sticker. Paul Youngs, thank you so much for gifting a membership. Little Cupcake, who says buffer zones are typical. So the question is how far? Yeah, I think you're right. In Massachusetts, I think they are typical. But I just loved Larry's rant on it, because we don't have those here in New York. You can pretty much free speech all the way, except for, the get out of jail free card, which Liz, thanks for becoming a member. I could go on about a whole nother episode. Indy Cindy says, stop taking our rights away that we fought for. Thanks for your super chat. And Scott McGinnis, who's always here with the super chat. I fear Judge Canoni is corrupt. She's beholden to the DA, and she will do his bidding. She will allow this unconstitutional ban of free speech. Look, we've seen all of her rulings in this case so far, and I think most people think that they have been pro-Commonwealth and anti-defense. So we're going to have to see. You got any thoughts on that one, Brandi?
Ugh. Yeah, it's one of those things where watching it, which she was a little bit in the last hearing, she was a little bit, nicer. Of course. Yeah.
Kids are watching.
Yeah. I'm not I mean,
You're not going to take odds on that?
Yeah.
What's the over under on that one? Does anybody want to start? James Lynch, thank you for the coffee. He says Karen Reed is factually innocent. Thank you, James Lynch. Brandi, are you live streaming this tomorrow at 9 a.m.?
Yes.
Or should I? Oh, are we going to be in competition? All right, maybe I'll do mine later in the day. I think I'll do mine later in the day anyway, because sometimes the live feed, the audio stinks, and that makes me so crazy that I do it on replay like around lunchtime. I wonder if she's going to give them like a 10-minute, limit. Like you each have 10 minutes to argue this, because you've got the interveners now too, the ACLU.
Yeah.
And I think Randazza is his name, the attorney that's coming in for the interveners.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I don't see in the court docket is any opposition yet to by the defense. Maybe they'll hand it to them tomorrow. I don't see that yet. But so far it's still on for 9 a.m.
Yeah. I'll be up. Are you live streaming it? If you are,
because I think the audio is not so great, and I'm not technologically savvy enough to boost the audio. And I think that I'll watch it live, and then I'll do a recap of it like around lunchtime. It's going to depend on how long it goes. Is it going to be all day? Is it going to be 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Because I like to talk a lot, as you can see. So it's hard. I keep stopping and talking, and some people just want to watch it straight through, and then some people in the chat here will watch it like 10 times tomorrow. So we can all do it, and I think I would prefer to do it on the replay.
Yeah.
So
I'll do it live, and then I'll send all my people to you to watch it for the legal breakdown.
Awesome. That sounds like a great plan. I'll come in your chat tomorrow. So I'll just give you a minute to give your closing thoughts, and then we'll wrap.
I think my closing thoughts are that, no matter which side you're on, I think that there's so much that has been done wrong in the investigation, and the presumption of innocence should be, Karen Reed is innocent unless she is proven otherwise. And I hope that you keep in mind that this could be any of us, and the people who are so hard on her, just, keep an open mind about that, and about how many things are wrong in this situation. And, we'll see what happens.
Yes. Innocent until proven guilty. And also, the Commonwealth has the burden in this case, you guys. We talk about this a million times. Karen Reed has to prove nothing. She could literally put on zero defense.
Mm-hmm.
The Commonwealth has the burden to prove that she intended, because now it's murder, intended to kill him, or with reckless disregard for what she did, actually did kill him.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an uphill battle for them based on all of the stuff that you have found and all of the documents that I have been over with my viewers. And thank you so much for coming on tonight, because you are
Thank you for having me.
air. Everyone, hit the like button on your way out. Thank you to the amazing moderators for keeping it classy tonight. I know that this may have been a bit of a rough crowd. I always go back and watch the chat later to see what you guys are dealing with, but you know how much I appreciate you so much. Everyone, if you would hit the subscribe bell here, that would be so amazing. I'm coming up on 30,000 subscribers, and Brandi hit 17,000 today. So listen, don't these two girls deserve to have more subscribers and get our feeds pushed out there more, like all these other people with 700,000 subscribers who are on the first page of your, it's not a For You page, your landing page on YouTube. I think we do. What do you think, Brandi? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah. Women, this was the Power Hour stream. Next time, Olivia will come. She couldn't make it tonight, so we will get Olivia on with us next time, you guys. To the viewers, the replay viewers, the channel members, love you all so much. You know I do. And remember, as I always say, my friends, be cool, be kind, be classy. It is not hard, really. It is so not hard. We will both see you tomorrow. Peace. Good night.